The Evergreen State College Student Support Services Staff Union now has a contract. It's been a long time coming, and it didn't come easy, but justice never comes easy.
You know, even at a place that is self-described as progressive, when you have realities where certain people haven't gotten raises in over a decade, or certain people who are the lowest paid workers in their category in their job description among four-year colleges in the whole state, that's when you have a lot of questions that come to the surface. So that's why even at a self-described progressive institution like Evergreen, we all saw clearly the need for a union. The initial steps were where the people who formed it, they tried to reach out to the administration and tried to approach it from a collaborative bargaining framework, because they felt that that was the way to do things at Evergreen. You know, you actually talk about things instead of taking a confrontational stance. And that was offered 3 times and rejected. By the time the union decided to go on strike, I mean, there had been 16 months of negotiating. And throughout that process, even the initial job actions that happened, they were fairly light and fairly humorous in some cases. We wrote messages on balloons, we sent the administration cake, tried to keep it, it didn't have to be confrontational. We didn't want it to be confrontational. So, even the job actions were of a lighter nature, but still trying to make the point that, hey, this is something serious, please respect us, please listen to us. And that didn't happen until things got a bit more serious, until the job actions became a bit more serious, up to and including that strike. It was for a lot of people a once-in-a-lifetime experience, because you never go into a work situation expecting to go on strike. It's just not it wasn't on most people's agenda, if ever. So I think a lot of people were surprised to be on strike, but then I think they were also pleasantly surprised by the ability of a group to come together and actually execute a very well organized plan. We removed a lot of uncertainty, because you never know how something's going to play out until you, so to speak, you run an experiment and get the data. So in essence, we ran the experiment, got the data, and the results were, I think, quite remarkable, because not only did we virtually shut the campus down, but the negotiations moved much faster after that, until we eventually got the contract.
On this year's budget chopping block was a state hatchery, which has provided valuable salmon runs for over 100 years. The operating cost of the hatchery is minimal, and it returns 6 times its budget in community economic benefits. This time, the community joined the workers to save the hatchery.
What we're here today for, and what I hope that you can help with, is to tell folks how much this hatchery and the fish it produces means to this community here, and for that matter, for Washington State.
Like I said, if you add up all the sources of income and the jobs that, there's people that take out charters, there's people who sell boats, there's people who sell fishing tackle, you know what I mean? All of those kinds of things make money, because there's 4.5 million fall Chinook released from this hatchery, and you can go out and catch them. We need to show our support for a hatchery like this. We need to show our support for recreational fishing, and we don't always, as fishermen, get together and do that.
This is an operation here that's small in the number of people it employs, but it has a very big footprint and a very big impact in our state economy. It's a net contributor to the bottom line of our economy, and cutting back on something that contributes to the bottom line is frankly just foolish. But more than that, this supports the fishing industry, both the commercial and the recreational fishing industry. And these are extremely valuable components of our Northwest culture. They have an incredible part to play in our local heritage that has more to do with our way of life than just the bottom line numbers.
You coming here is powerful. One of the things that I can give in return is that if you are willing to come up and sign this, we're calling this this piece of cloth on a board, a petition, and I will take this to Olympia, and I will show your local legislators it, and I will show other people that it will do some good to see it, that you, members of the community up here, don't want them to close that hatchery. That's something that I can do. Fresh eyes in the game are always a good thing. If you have not reached out to your legislators and let them hear your voice and let them get your knowledge from this community, then you're not doing something that can really help. Just that easy.
Summer is picnic time and dining al fresco, that's outside. A Federation member of the Department of Health has good advice to make this dining experience a safe one.
The reality is that about 1 in 6 of us will get sick from food this year. The good news is there are some simple things you can do to help prevent an outbreak from occurring at your next picnic or barbecue. The most important thing you can do is to wash your hands. Don't contaminate cooked or ready-to-eat food with raw chicken or meat. Make sure you cook your meat thoroughly to the proper temperatures and keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold. The most important way you can avoid cross-contamination is to not use the same plate for cooked meat that you use for raw meat. When going on a picnic, it's really important to plan ahead. Make sure you have plenty of coolers and plenty of ice to keep foods cold. And when we say keep foods cold, we mean keep it at 41 degrees or below. Hot foods need to be at 140 degrees or above. If you're going on a picnic and you don't have hand washing available, make sure you take alcohol-based hand sanitizer and wash your hands thoroughly after handling raw meat and before eating. If you're taking raw meat out to a picnic, make sure you keep it separate from all of the beverages and ready-to-eat foods. It's important to cook your meat and chicken thoroughly, and when we say thoroughly, we mean that hamburger must be cooked to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, chicken must be cooked to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, fish to 145 degrees Fahrenheit, and hot dogs to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. The most important thing you can do is don't rely on sight to determine if your food is done or not. Use a thin tipped thermometer, digital, that you can use to insert into the food and make sure your food reaches the proper temperature. It's important to keep in mind that food has germs. The best way you can keep foods from making you sick is to cook your meat and chicken thoroughly. Wash fruits and vegetables before you eat them. Wash your hands after handling raw meat and raw chicken, and especially wash your hands before you eat. If you have leftovers from your picnic or barbecue, make sure they have not been in the temperature danger zone for more than 2 hours. If they have, throw them out. Here at the Department of Health, we have everything you need for a safe picnic or barbecue. Visit our website at www.doh.wa.gov or search for us at Washington State Department of Health.
At a recent labor conference in Paris, a delegate from the International Trade Union Confederation, which represents 174 million workers in 156 countries with 315 national affiliates, says the trade unions of the world have to start seriously addressing the employment needs of the latest generation.
Especially governments should keep in mind that my generation is the most educated and the most skilled one we ever had, and it can't just be about apprenticeship and about more education. The discussion has to be more about demand side and about creating jobs for those people and giving them an opportunity in that labor market, because I think otherwise we will really lose this generation. My generation now is really in the place to do the right things, and we have to now make the right decisions, and I think especially trade unions should address these issues and should address the needs of young people in these states. They have to adjust more to the changes in labor market, which are shifting to more flexible labor contracts, and we have to give an answer on that as well. Youth unemployment is always part of total unemployment, and it's always higher than total unemployment. So I think policy should really focus on stimulus packages and things like that, also to address youth unemployment. And the focus should not be too much on lowering labor standards, lowering minimum wages for young people. That can't be the right answer.
In this month's labor history, Ross Rieder notes the passing of two of our state's labor giants.
In past July articles, I have covered the founding history of the United Farm Workers. In some ways, it is appropriate then to mention the simultaneous loss of two individuals who were active supporters of the farm worker cause in our state. On May 13th this year, both Larry Kenny and Will Perry died. I don't expect many of you to know who they were. That's why I'm saying this. In short, they were two fine human beings. In the late 1960s and 70s, part of my duties as president of the Washington State Federation of Teachers was to lobby in Olympia. There, I worked with them both. Larry was research director at the State Labor Council, later becoming president. Will was a lobbyist for the Rebel Union, the Associated Pulp and Paper Workers, a political activist from the 1930s on, and in recent years editor of the newsletter for the Puget Sound Advocates for Retirement Action. The relation of Kenny and Perry and UFW is that both were supporters and active in promoting legislation in support of farm workers, things like protection from pesticides, elimination of child labor, all sorts of support. I have a visual memory of driving to Yakima to march. We joined a few hundred UFW supporters to march from Miller Park to Highway 97 at Union Gap to meet hundreds of Yakima Valley farm workers who were organizing down valley. In 1977, a few weeks into the infamous King County auto trade strike, where the only issue that kept the auto machinists out on strike for 14 months was the union shop they'd had since 1937, I was hired to organize community and union support for picketing at 52 car stores every weekend so the regular strikers could have a rest. Fortunately for me, the Auto Machinist Local 289 recognized this wasn't a one-person job, and they hired Will Perry to join me. We must have visited 99% of the local union meetings in King County, even the ones like the projectionists from IATSE who met at midnight or 1 o'clock. I got to know Will pretty well those months, and we put hundreds of ordinary citizens and supportive trade unionists on the picket lines those Saturdays and Sundays. Larry Kenny, had he lasted another 36 hours, would have been 83. Will Perry was 93. Larry Kenny and Will Perry, trade unionists and good human beings.
This has been Our View, brought to you by the proud members of the Washington Federation of State Employees. We remind you, when you accept a paycheck for your hard work, you don't give up your rights. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next month.